I got my first data analytics internship back in 2020. At that time, I was still in university and I had just completed a bunch of portfolio projects. One day, an employer came across my projects, found them interesting, and decided to hire me as a data analyst intern. All because of the projects that I had displayed on my resume. That internship soon turned into a full-time job as a data analyst. After working in the field of data analytics for over 4 years, I've helped review resumes and I've helped in the hiring process. I've learned about what employers are looking for from entry-level candidates. There are so many things that you can do right now to improve your chances of getting a job. But most importantly, I've realized that although projects are so important in helping you get your first job, most people are doing them wrong. Doing just any project will not guarantee you a job in the field. Not all projects are the same. In this video, I am going to share with you why you should create projects, the biggest mistake that most people make when displaying projects on their resume, and what types of projects you actually should be creating to stand out from the competition and get hired. Let's get into it. Before we start, I would like to give a quick shout out to 365 Data Science for sponsoring today's video. Thank you so much, 365 Data Science, for being this channel's first ever sponsor, and I will be talking more about them later in this video. First, let's start with the story of how I got my first data analytics internship. I had just turned 18 and I was still in university at this time. I was teaching myself things like Python, SQL, Excel, and all of these other skills needed to become a data analyst. One day, I came across an article that suggested building portfolio projects. So I created about 3 to 4 of my own portfolio projects and I displayed them on a website. I built this website using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. One day, a data science manager came across my portfolio website. He was interested in some of the projects that I decided to create. He scheduled a meeting with me and we had a chat. He asked me questions like, why did you decide to create a data analytics project on gender inequality in Hollywood? That project had piqued his interest. We spoke a bit about my projects and findings. By the end of that conversation, I was hired. You see, since this was an internship, the employer wasn't looking for someone with a ton of experience. He wasn't expecting me to be the best at SQL or data visualization. He knew that I probably had no idea how to drive ROI with data analytics. He just saw that I was learning, using my skills to build cool things, and had some interesting stories to tell. And because of that, he hired me. I went on to work there as an intern for the next 3 to 4 months and eventually got a promotion and became a full-time data analyst in that company. Now, let's talk a bit about why you should build projects in the first place. There are 2 main reasons as to why you should create data analytics projects. The first reason is because projects will teach you so much more than any online course ever will. Projects are the closest thing to actually working as a data analyst in an organization. When you build projects, you will inevitably run into problems. Your Excel file will crash, your Python code won't run, your dashboard will look messy and visually unappealing. And you've got to go in and solve all of these problems and troubleshoot, which will teach you a bunch of skills that you can never gain from an online course. Secondly, creating projects will dramatically improve your chances of getting a job. Think about it. Over 2 million people have enrolled into Coursera's Google Data Analytics certification. Over 2 million people have learned the skills of SQL, data analysis, and data visualization. If you have the same courses and the same skills as these people on your resume, how are you ever going to stand out? Why would an employer hire you over any of these people? Projects will give you a competitive edge. This will help you stand out and show employers what you're capable of. I once created a project on customer segmentation. I wrote a blog post about it and published it on the internet. In just a few hours, an employer found the project, reached out to me, and hired me. At that time, I barely had any real work experience. That project that I spent about 3 to 4 hours of my time on is what got me the role. We now know that building projects is really important, especially if you're a beginner. But how can you create projects that will actually get you a job? The first step is to build projects that are different. Create projects that stand out. As I've said earlier in this video, not all projects are the same, In fact, some projects can do more harm to your portfolio than good. For example, if you took the Google Data Analytics certification on Coursera and you did all of the capstone projects in that course, yes, that is great and it helps you apply everything that you've learned, but chances are millions of other people who have taken that course have also done the certification. Employers have probably already seen the same project on other people's resumes. And then what differentiates you from those other people? Why should an employer hire you? These projects are just too simple. They're not unique. They don't highlight your ability to problem solve. They don't showcase the value that you bring to the table. Listen, I used to do these simple, beginner-friendly projects all the time when I was just starting out. I would code along to YouTube tutorials and online courses. I would download datasets on Kaggle and do projects on them. But I never showcased any of these projects on my resume because they were just too simple, and I knew that everyone else around me and all of my classmates were building the exact same projects. Instead, I built projects that were unique, that told a story or solved a problem. For example, let's take my first project on the gender gap analysis in Hollywood. This is the project that got me my first internship. I got the idea for this project after watching a TV show that talked about the Bechdel test. Apparently, a movie only passes the Bechdel test if it has these three things. Firstly, it should feature two women. These two women should talk to each other, and they need to talk to each other about something other than a man. It seems almost too simple, right? It seems like every movie in the 21st century should pass the Bechdel test, right? I was curious. I decided to use data to find out. I found a movie data set online, and I also found a website that had information specific to the Bechdel test, so I used an API to collect that data. I processed all of this data in Python, and I analyzed it to answer questions like, did newer movies have more female representation in them as compared to older movies? Were movies with female directors more likely to pass the Bechdel test? Which genre of movies was least likely to pass the Bechdel test? This was a fun, unique little project that answered a few questions that I was interested in. It wasn't groundbreaking, it didn't solve a pressing business problem, but it told a story. I even wrote an entire article outlining my findings from this project, and that is what got me hired. This simple, somewhat silly project helped me land my first internship. Interesting projects that tell a story will always win over projects that have been recreated dozens of times. The second step is to showcase your projects in an interesting way. How are you displaying your projects? Are you just putting a bunch of code in GitHub and expecting employers to read through it? Or do you have all of your analysis in a spreadsheet that you're expecting somebody else to go through? Because if you are doing this, then you're putting yourself at a massive disadvantage. I want you to imagine two scenarios. The first scenario is you've created the project on the gender gap in Hollywood. You have spent hours collecting data, processing it, analyzing it, and coming up with findings. Once you're done, you take all of your code and all of your findings and you put it in a GitHub repository. And then you add that GitHub repository to your resume. Now, if an employer wants to find your work and learn more about your work, they have to go to GitHub and read through your code file. This person has hundreds of resumes to go through. They probably have a short attention span. By just putting all of your work on GitHub and doing nothing else, you've automatically reduced your chances of visibility. Unless the employer takes the time to look at every single project on GitHub, they're probably not even going to see your work. They might just overlook it. And then you've lost your chance to stand out. It isn't enough to just do great work. You also have to make sure that other people see this work. Now let's go to the second scenario. You create the same project on the gender gap in Hollywood, but this time you write an article about all of your findings and you publish it online. When an employer sees this, you've immediately captured their attention. Now, instead of having to read through a bunch of code, they get to read an interesting story with images and charts. Automatically, you'll stand out compared to everyone else who applied. Even if you're not the best programmer or analyst out there, you'll stand out because you took the extra step to tell a story about your work, something that not many other people take the time to do. Also, keep in mind that when it comes to data analytics teams, most hiring managers and team leads are non-technical people. A lot of them come from a business background rather than a technical one, which means that many of them don't even know how to code. In this case, you're doing yourself a massive disservice by simply putting a bunch of code in GitHub, because they're probably not even going to read it. And I know that this might sound unfair or even absurd to some of you, but it happens more often than you think. And in these situations, creating a presentation or an article or a dashboard displaying your work can dramatically set you apart from other candidates. Because now, the employer doesn't have to go through a bunch of code that they don't even understand. Now they can read through all of the steps outlined in your article and learn about your project's insights and findings. Also, when you publish your work in the form of a blog post on the internet, you're not just relying on a company responding to your job application on LinkedIn. You're also increasing your chances of an employer randomly finding your work on the internet. You're letting search engines and algorithms do the work for you. One article that you publish on medium.com can show up in people's feeds and the Google homepage and in people's emails months after that article has been published. A Twitter post displaying an interesting project can blow up and be shown to thousands of people. When you do this, your projects are being read by people even when you're not actively applying to jobs. And this means that employers are far more likely to find your work online and hire you. When I first started out, I got nowhere when I put a bunch of boring projects in GitHub. I only started getting noticed and getting hired when I created projects that I was interested in and told a story and wrote an article about them. And if you're still not convinced, then I am going to give you a few more examples of data analytics projects that have helped other people land jobs in the field. This person, Daniel Burke, made the career transition from an Uber driver to a machine learning engineer just because of his projects. He created an object detection model designed to enhance Airbnb listings, and he wrote an entire blog post describing this project. Because his friend's son was born deaf, he built a project designed to understand the genetic causes of hearing loss. Someone found his projects after seeing his YouTube videos and blog posts. They recommended him and he got hired. Nobody would have found his work if he had just let his project sit in a GitHub repository. The next project is the dashboard called Skill Query. I found this project in a YouTube video created by Luke Barus, and it was built by someone called Emiliano. This dashboard displays the most in-demand skills and technologies in data science roles. Emiliano created this project by scraping a bunch of data-related job listings on LinkedIn and analyzing them. I've linked this project to my description in case you want to check it out. This project is perfect. It solves a problem that a lot of people have. As a job seeker, you always want to know what the most in-demand skills and technologies in your industry are. And Emiliano's project solves this problem. It is also really easy to understand. You can go in, click on the dashboard, play around with it, and at a single glance, you'll be able to tell what it does. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so I have to create projects that are unique, and I have to share them with other people. But where do I start? How can I create projects in the first place, and what are the steps I should take? I am now going to give you a 6-step framework on building your own project from scratch. This is the framework that I used to build every single project that has landed me jobs and opportunities. The first step that you need to take when building a project is find a problem that you want to solve with data. Always start with a question or a problem statement first. In the case of my first data analytics project, this question was, are women underrepresented in Hollywood? So many people make the mistake of starting with a data set. So they'll go on Kaggle, they'll choose a data set, and then they'll decide to analyze the data set to solve a problem. But when you do this, your scope is already limited. You're limiting yourself to the amount of data that's available on the internet. And then you're just going to end up doing what everyone else is doing, and your project isn't going to be unique. Instead, you should start with a problem statement, like Emiliano did with his job search dashboard. He just asked the question, how can I make it easier for job seekers to identify the most in-demand skills? And then, after you've established the problem statement, you can figure out where to get the relevant data set for the analysis. In my case, when I decided that I wanted to analyze the gender gap in Hollywood, I then went and scoured the internet for relevant movie data sets. The second step is to find a data set that can help you solve this problem. You can do this with web scraping, which will improve your programming skills. And this is also what Emiliano did. He scraped a bunch of job listings on LinkedIn. Or you can collect this data using an API, or just find a publicly available data set on a site like Kaggle. If you can't find any relevant data on the internet, simply go to ChatGPT and ask it to generate a fake data set for you. For example, if I was recreating my gender gap project in 2024 and I didn't want to collect this data using an API, I could just ask ChatGPT to generate a fake movie dataset. Creating a dataset with ChatGPT is only possible using its Code Interpreter plugin, and this is only available to ChatGPT Plus subscribers. In other words, if you want to generate a fake dataset with ChatGPT, you have to be a paying user of ChatGPT Plus. If you'd like to learn more about ChatGPT Plus and how to use it for everyday work, data analysis, and to improve productivity, I have released a brand new book that covers all of those topics and more. You can find my book in the link in my description. It is titled Automate Everyday Tasks with ChatGPT, and you can get it at a 35% discount using the code in my description. The book also goes into detail about how to build website landing pages with ChatGPT and how to create GPT-driven applications using custom GPTs. So do check it out if that's something you're interested in learning. Okay, so now that we have our problem statement and data, it is time to pick a tool for this analysis. This could be something like Excel. It could be a visualization tool like Tableau or Power BI, or it could be a programming language like Python. The tool that you choose depends on your level of expertise. I would recommend showcasing a combination of skill sets in your project. For example, build something where you analyze, clean, and collect the data with Python, and then visualize the data with Tableau. This way, you're showcasing both your programming and dashboarding skills in a single project. The next step is data cleaning. This step is optional. It depends on where you got your data from. If you've scraped your data from the internet, chances are you do need to clean it and maybe even combine it with other data sources. But if you got your data sets from Kaggle or ChatGPT, then chances are it's already clean, so you can skip the step and go straight to the analysis. Step number 5 is data analysis. This is the most crucial part of your entire project. This is where you'll get to showcase your Excel or programming or querying skills. You'll be answering your initial problem statement by creating a pivot table or building a bunch of charts. And if you get stuck along the way, you can always ask generative AI to help you along. So you now have a bunch of interesting insights from your data. For example, I have this chart here showing that movies that pass the Bechdel test actually have lower IMDb ratings. And I know that this isn't a great chart, it's pretty hard to read. But now that I have this piece of insight, I can write it in a blog post or I can make a tweet about it. And this is an insight that other people might find interesting. Are movies with more female representation just worse? Or could that be a confounding variable impacting this result? I don't know. But it is worth outlining your results in a blog post or social media post so that another person can easily find it, understand it, and maybe even hire you for a job because of it. And that is my 6-step project framework. Now, some of you who are watching this video might still struggle with following this framework. You might be a complete beginner or you might have no experience at all with creating your own projects. If this is the case, you will find it difficult to plan an entire project on your own, and you might also struggle when trying to collect or analyze data for this project. And for you, 365 Data Science has a wide range of projects covering the steps mentioned in this video, like data cleaning, analysis, and visualization. You can also choose a project that is specific to a technology like Python, SQL, or Tableau. I also really like that these projects are domain specific. Most of them are related to a field like customer analytics or marketing, which is what data analysts are usually hired to work on. The projects that are labeled free are also completely free, and you can take them at no cost if you're not ready to pay for this yet. Another thing that I really like about these projects is that you can take them in two modes, guided and unguided. If you choose the guided path, you will be given a bunch of detailed steps on how to proceed. You'll be given expert guidance and will be handheld the entire time. If you choose the unguided path, then you won't be given many hints. You've got to figure it out on your own and create the project yourself. I have never seen another learning platform offer anything like this before. If you're just starting out, I would recommend going for the beginner-friendly guided projects and then slowly working your way up to the more difficult unguided ones. Now, let's imagine that you have taken some time, followed all of the steps mentioned in this video, and created 3 to 4 amazing portfolio projects. You've even communicated your insights using a blog post or a social media post. It is now time to showcase all of your projects on a single portfolio website. You can then add a link to your portfolio website everywhere, on LinkedIn, on your resume, and on every blog post and social media post that you create. This way, employers have to click on one link and they get to see all of your work displayed in a single website. This is my portfolio website. I created this way back in 2020. I have this about section describing myself. I also have a section displaying my projects and my certifications. I actually created this website like 4 years ago. I haven't updated it since then, so it's nice to look back because a lot of things have changed since that time. Anyway, if you would like to build a similar website for your projects, let me know and I will make a video teaching you how to do that. As always, I am giving you homework. These are actionable steps that you can take immediately after watching this video. I do this so that you end up actually applying the information that you've learned in this video, because consuming an endless amount of content and watching hundreds of YouTube videos isn't going to help you. You have to take the steps towards building the project and achieving your goal. Your first homework task is to find a problem that can be solved with the help of data. The best way to do this is to look around you and see what you're curious about and what you're struggling with. For example, if you're struggling to identify the best skills to learn in 2024, then you can turn this into a project. You can web scrape a bunch of job listings in 2024. You can even compare the demand of certain skills across different years. For example, did the demand for Excel decrease in the past year because of ChatGPT? The second homework task is to build your own data analytics project. You can do this by going to 365 Data Science and doing one of their guided free projects, or you can follow along to the 6-step framework I've mentioned in this video. Some of you who are watching this video might have already completed your own data analytics project. If that's the case, great job. Now go a step further and communicate your insights from this project. Write a blog post or a social media post about it. As always, you can always tag me in one of your posts or even DM me a link to it. I would love to see your projects and learn something from them. The final homework task is to spend about 30 minutes a day learning about generative AI. This is something that I am doing myself. ChatGPT and other Gen AI models are undoubtedly going to change the landscape of data analytics. You automatically have an edge over other people in the field if you start incorporating Gen AI into your workflows. Learn things like prompt engineering. The ability to fine-tune language models on a custom dataset is an invaluable skill to have. Companies are now looking for people who can save them time and money with generative AI, so these are really important skills to have. You can start by simply subscribing to an AI newsletter or by reading a tutorial on ChatGPT for data analysis. Reading about 1 to 2 articles a day will take less than 30 minutes of your time, and it will help you stay on top of everything that's happening in the industry. I also have this entire video in my description teaching you how to use ChatGPT for data analysis, so do check that out if it's something you're interested in learning. And that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you manage to take away at least one thing from this video that will add value to your career and your life. If you enjoyed this video, please do like it and do subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!